welcome to this webinar tagged Science Advice for COVID-19 Pandemic in the Context of Biodiversity Conservation and Ecological Restoration, holding today, 29 September 2020, via this Zoom platform. This webinar is organized by UNESCO Regional Office Abuja and the Nigerian Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Service, NIPES, to exchange views, receive recommendations on the role of national science advice and information.
To share this kind of platform with you because I know the deep passion you have for environmental issues. Let me pay my regards to His Excellency Lamiso, the head of the UNESCO multi-sectoral biodiversity conservation and related topics. So it is actually a pleasure to be here for these very brief remarks. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it very, very imperative for this kind of conversation, especially on science advice for COVID-19. And I think in every context, not just in relation to biodiversity conservation and ecological restoration. Technology. What we try to do is to re-evaluate on a very continuous basis our priorities in terms of this pandemic, and to strategize and to focus additional effort on finding innovative solutions to the problems caused by the pandemic. As the situation changes, we also try to be flexible and make appropriate adjustment to ensure that we stay not necessarily ahead, but as closely as possible to understand, the dynamics of this pandemic. So, in my very brief remark, I'll be constrained to speak about biodiversity conservation, which I think essentially refers to protection, preservation, and management of ecosystems and natural habitats, towards ensuring that they are healthy and functional, while restoration is a critical mitigating tool for achieving improved conservation of the ecosystem in order to foster sustainable socio-economic development of the habitat. The Ministry of Science and Technology and agencies have made significant interventions to the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, applying various approaches that involves preventive, curative, scientific evaluation of drug samples, and collaborations with relevant stakeholders. These measures involves the development of P-T3 strategy of prevention, tracking, testing, and treatment, which is both a short, medium, and long-term response initiative to contain the COVID-19, as well as ramp-up production of devices such as ventilators, disinfectant chambers, PPEs, etc., completed or are at advanced stages of development. We are also encouraging and supporting Nigerian scientists, researchers, and traditional alternative medicine practitioners to join the race for development of an effective local vaccine or cure for the disease. Our commitment to support the development of a homegrown solution was demonstrated further with the setting of 2 ministerial committees charged to authenticate claims of Nigerians on anti-COVID-19 herbal recipes and natural compounds. We are in partnership with relevant MDS pursuing this program. So the COVID-19 pandemic has globally interrupted economic and social activities, food supply chain, and agricultural systems due to lockdown and border closure. Hence the urgent need for a joint national and international effort to explore available resources to address the situation. In one of the committees, we have partnered the Nigerian Academy of Sciences in this wise to evaluate some claims that show some promises for the cure of COVID-19. As I speak, they are already working on that assignment, and hopefully we should have some tangible result that will provide a way forward. I'm happy to note that the President of the Nigerian Academy of Sciences is one of the panelists in this webinar. I have thought that in his remarks, he will have been able to speak about the joint efforts we are making towards having a solution for COVID-19. Nigeria is endowed with enormous resources stretching across the country, comprising of both flora and fauna. The comparative and competitive benefits and advantages of these resources, ensuring steady, sustainable development and growth, and a healthy ecosystem cannot be overemphasized. In the establishment of a viable value-added innovation program to develop our indigenous bioresources using appropriate technologies. The National Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, NAGRA, is another unique facility with a gene bank under the Ministry for the Conservation of our abundant plant genetic resources. We also pursue various collaborations and linkages at both domestic and international levels to address different issues such as climate change and biodiversity. The Atlantic Interaction is another partnership with Portuguese government designed to sustainably manage the Atlantic resources through a sound research and technological agenda in different thematic areas such as space, atmospheric, climate, energy, and oceans tide. The data acquired will support effective exploration of the Atlantic Ocean to the benefit of humanities and the bordering countries. That is why the ministry is the vehicle driving the concept of blue economy to ensure the conservation of ocean resources in a manner that will not distort their natural state and yet providing a sustained economic activities to the people. Finally, the ministry have also, through its agency, Natural Medicine Development Agency, initiated a plant species restoration project across the 774 local governments in Nigeria. The initiative is to ensure that plants that are going extinct are identified via a plant inventory, restored, and conserved for future medicinal or other socio-economic benefits. The project is ongoing, and so far over 1,000 plant species have been inventorized by the agency. It is to be noted finally that in setting out this agenda, the ministry have been collaborating with Unesco and other international development partners who have been supportive of our programs and initiatives with technical and expert assistance. We intend to work with Unesco in this line and direction to protect our eco-diversity. I therefore hope that this webinar will also chart new frontiers in the global effort to conserve our diverse bio-ecosystems for future generations. I sincerely thank you immensely for your very kind attention, and I wish us a very successful webinar. Thank you all. The ministry, to see how we can, scientific in nature, that to mitigate against the COVID-19 pandemic, essentially stems from our partnership with the Nigeria Academy of Sciences. A robust information system that is science-based is necessary to control and effectively contain the virus. That is why we are giving every support to several claimants that suggests that they have a cure for the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, how do we ensure, from the perspective of sciences, that those claims are in fact sellable, bankable, and safe for human use? The best thing to do in the circumstances was to engage the Nigerian Academy of Sciences, who are essentially to verify these claims and then look at the possibility of having a clinical test that will ensure the accuracy, as it were, or the efficacy of these various claims. Secondly, like I said earlier in my address, we have been able to develop PPEs to support our healthcare workers. We have been able to also support, on the perspective of the public interaction in various places of businesses. We have been able to manufacture what we call disinfectant walking toners by Naseni, which is essentially to support people around their businesses. So I think, to the best of our knowledge, we have also supported agencies to intensify research effort to ensure that other solutions are found to effectively contain the COVID-19 pandemic and the virus itself. Now, if I get you right, your last question was about effective scientific data sharing between agencies and other collaborators. Now, have been able to, have linkages with counterpart ministries across Africa. When we had the last conversation to do with ministers of science and technology from across African countries, we are trying to leverage on each individual's strength, a lot of human resources. And then, of course, South Africa will provide what we call the resources for research institutions to effectively leverage on. So there is a system where we are not only sharing information, we are sharing resources, and we are sharing equipment, so that we can leverage on that to effectively, fast track, as it were, the solutions to the pandemic. And then, of course, there are other informations that are, let me not say that confidentiality were signed by the various partners, in the circumstances. But however, I can assure you that we have been engaging with other agencies. And the last engagement I had was with TWAS, that is the World Academy of Sciences, where we agreed to share requisite information on COVID-19. So we're working on that. That process is being financed by the Islamic Development Bank. So I hope that I've been able to effectively answer in a few words your questions. Thank you.
Taking into consideration the ministry, UNESCO, and international organizations, as it were. Yes, sir.
First, I think we need a very strong national policy and law against bush burning. As simple as it is, or looks, we need a national policy on that because it destroys our ecosystem. Two, we need to establish a national parks development fund to support our parks and conservation efforts. Three, we need to set up an R&D bank to support essentially research-based findings. And then finally, we have to incentivize support for venture capitalists to invest in research results. So on that premise, I thank you all for this opportunity to speak. Thank you so much.
Can you comment on what the minister has said, please?
Who is speaking, please?
Dr. Boni from National Park Service.
Yes, sir. Just very shortly.
Honorable Minister, sir, I want to thank you for that beautiful idea, establishing a National Park Development Fund. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And just to also add to what you have said, because you really, you brought this out very well, that presently we are having the scientists and researchers are becoming endangered. The scientists that are going to be making the policies, doing the research and all that. And so you are harping on promotion of STEM education.
Exactly.
So probably we'll also add this to what you have said, because you really harped on that we have to promote STEM education.